In battle, courage is the first virtue.
The world watched as two legendary figures emerged from the blood-soaked sands of the Holy Land, Richard the Lionheart of England and Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt and Syria. These men, bound by faith but separated by conflict, clashed in one of the most iconic military campaigns of the medieval period, the Third Crusade. This was not just a war for land, but for the soul of the Christian and Muslim worlds. It was a battle for the holy city of Jerusalem, the crossroads of faiths. In 1187, Saladin dealt a devastating blow to the Christian forces in the Holy Land at the Battle of Hattin, recapturing Jerusalem and many Crusader strongholds. The loss of the Holy City, especially to Christian Europe, was an unimaginable defeat. Jerusalem was the spiritual heart of Christianity, and its fall sent shockwaves throughout Europe. Pope Gregory VIII immediately called for a Third Crusade, urging Europe's monarchs to unite against the Muslim forces and reclaim the Holy Land. Among the leaders who answered the call were King Richard I of England, Richard the Lionheart, King Philip II of France, and the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa. Though their initial goal was simple: retake Jerusalem, the path would be fraught with challenges. Richard the Lionheart, Richard I of England, also known as Richard the Lionheart, was a warrior king whose name would become synonymous with the Crusades. His courage, martial prowess, and unrelenting determination made him one of the most celebrated figures of the Third Crusade. Richard was driven by faith, glory, and the personal ambition to be remembered as a great crusader. His military tactics and charisma won him many battles, but his impulsive nature and political struggles often complicated his campaign. Saladin. On the other side stood Saladin, the legendary Sultan of Egypt and Syria. He was as devout and strategic as Richard, with a reputation for both military brilliance and chivalrous conduct. Saladin had unified the Muslim world and reclaimed Jerusalem for Islam, making him a revered figure in Islamic history. His calm demeanor and tactical genius allowed him to maintain a strong defense of the Holy Land against overwhelming odds. The Crusader armies began their march with lofty goals, but quickly faced setbacks. Frederick Barbarossa drowned while crossing a river, and his death disheartened many of his troops, leaving only Richard and Philip as the main leaders. After a perilous journey by sea, Richard arrived in the Holy Land in 1191. Siege of Acre 1189 to 1191. Richard and Philip's first target was the city of Acre, which had been under siege for 2 years. The Crusaders, despite their internal divisions, managed to break the city's defenses. Acre surrendered in July 1191, and this victory was the first major success of the Third Crusade. However, it came at a cost. Tensions between Richard and Philip grew, and soon after the victory, Philip returned to France, leaving Richard to lead the crusade alone. With Acre under Christian control, Richard began his march south along the Mediterranean coast towards Jerusalem. However, the Crusaders were plagued by shortages of supplies, internal conflicts, and the harsh climate. Battle of Arsuf 1191. As Richard advanced towards Arsuf, Saladin's forces shadowed the Crusader army, harassing them with skirmishes. Saladin sought to wear down the Crusaders with hit-and-run tactics, but Richard maintained strict discipline, forcing his troops to march in tight formations. On September 7, 1191, near the city of Arsuf, Saladin launched a full-scale assault, hoping to break Richard's army. Richard's response was swift and decisive. He allowed his forces to absorb the initial attacks, waiting for the perfect moment to counterattack. When the time came, Richard led a cavalry charge that tore through Saladin's lines, driving the Muslim army into retreat. The Battle of Arsuf was a significant victory for the Crusaders, demonstrating Richard's tactical brilliance and solidifying his reputation as a master of warfare. Strategic deadlock. Despite his victories, Richard soon realized that retaking Jerusalem would be nearly impossible without proper supplies and reinforcements. Saladin's strategy of scorched earth, destroying the surrounding lands to deny resources to the Crusaders, combined with the difficulties of maintaining unity among the Christian forces, began to take a toll on Richard's campaign. Richard led several advances towards Jerusalem, but each time he hesitated to commit to a full-scale siege. He knew that even if they managed to capture the city, they might not be able to hold it against Saladin's forces. By 1192, both Richard and Saladin were exhausted. Their armies had been stretched thin, and the conflict had reached a stalemate. Instead of continuing a costly war, Richard and Saladin agreed to negotiate. The Treaty of Jaffa, signed in September 1192, concluded the Third Crusade. Under the terms of the treaty, Jerusalem would remain under Muslim control, but Christian pilgrims would be allowed to visit the city. Additionally, several coastal cities, including Jaffa, remained in Crusader hands, ensuring a continued Christian presence in the Holy Land. The Third Crusade, while failing to recapture Jerusalem, had far-reaching consequences. It marked the height of Richard the Lionheart's fame and solidified Saladin's legacy as one of the most respected Muslim leaders in history. Though the crusade did not achieve its ultimate goal, it established a precedent for future crusades and ensured that the struggle for the Holy Land would continue for centuries. For both Christians and Muslims, the Third Crusade was a defining moment, a clash of two great civilizations, led by two of history's most iconic figures. The Crusades themselves would shape the geopolitical and religious landscape of the medieval world, leaving a complex legacy of warfare, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. Thank you for watching our deep dive into the Third Crusade. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more epic historical battles. Let us know in the comments what other topics you'd like to see next. Together, let's continue exploring the stories that shaped our world.